FXN Trading Group. Welcome back to another video. And so in this video, we're going to go ahead and just take a look at some charts for a couple weeks on different pairs. And we're going to go ahead and just see what kind of setups we can find. That way you can come accustomed to as to what you're looking for when trading these different pairs. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start. Let's just start with pound USD right here. Okay, so here is the beginning of the week here. And typically what we like to see at the beginning of the week is market makers like to go ahead and make a false move and follow that move for about a 2-day period before a reversal comes. So here we have the false move to the bottom here. So on this day here, this would have been, let's go here. This would have been on Sunday, Monday. And if we just set up our Asian range here, we'll see what kind of setup we can get here on that day. All right. So here we go, Sunday into Monday. What we can see here is Asian range is about 23 pips, which is great. It's a good Asian range right there. So we're expecting some kind of a move to happen here, right? Now, what we're looking for is we're looking for either a type 1, type 2, type 3, or a trade off the edge, right? So in this particular case, what do we have here? Looks like we had a double bottom here to the low of the Asian range. Now, as you can see, the first half, the first leg was actually in the range, in the Asian range. So the second leg would have came off of the Asian range. So this is basically a trading off the edge. Okay, and so we have a W formation here, and we would have taken that one, tried to at least get 30 to 50 pips, right? So this would have given us around 27, 28 pips or so. So this would have been a good trade right here to take. Okay. Now, once you get good and consistent with doing this, with trading market maker method, you can go ahead and actually trade both ways, right? So this would have been here your first trade. That would have been your first trade here, and then the second trade would have been this right here, that M. So this right here would have been your second trade, right? And this all would have been actually in London going into the beginning of New York. So for London, you would have had basically two trades, and first trade would have gotten you 28 pips. This one would have gotten you 38 pips, okay? And so this one would have been a type 1 because we're creating an M outside of the Asian range. Okay. So there's two trades that you could have gotten there. And then also if you would have traded the US session, what do we have here is we have another M. So that would have been another trade right there for you. And that would have gotten you another 35, 37 pips right there. So 3 trades on the same pair, trading M's and W's, okay, on the same day on one pair, which is pretty nice. Now here on the next day, which this was yesterday, Tuesday. So if we mark out the Asian range, which would have been from here to 2, which 2 would have been right here. Now, here's what we can see so far on the Asian range. It started to move way early, right down, and you could have possibly seen two different setups, right? You could have seen one of them here, So you could have seen one of them here as a star pattern right here, right? As a morning star pattern here. And then here's another morning star pattern. Now, the important thing about this is the fact that you know that it doesn't meet our entry rules, which it didn't close above the catch up here, right? So essentially, this would have kept you out of the trade. Okay, this would have kept you out of the trade, and you can see that, yeah, it made a great move all the way down, but we really didn't have a setup to actually take this on. Okay, we really didn't have a setup for this to actually take it. Okay, so that's one thing that you have to understand, is that, like, yeah, it would have been moving down and it would have been a great trade if you got it from here, but this is not, we didn't get any kind of setups here for it to trigger us to get into a trade. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that even though it went all the way down, and yes, oh my god, it went down what, 50 pips, 80 pips or so, that there's no setup here telling you, hey, let's get into this trade from, you know, from what we've known to look for. So it's okay to miss this trade because it didn't have the setup for us to begin with. So, you know, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's go to another pound pair here, and let's take a look and see if we can get any kind of setups here. So this would have been, yep, this would have been Sunday, Monday here. And you can see our Asian range here. And then here's where we have our trade set up for this one. So we have a nice type 1 pattern here, where we moved away from the Asian low, created a W, and boom, there is your trade right there. That would have been a good 100 pips right there on pound CAD. Okay, so close to 100 pips on pound CAD. Now also, cool thing is, remember when I said about you can trade it both ways? Well, on that same pound CAD, look what we got for New York session, which was this right here. So essentially this allowed us to create our M formation, and you could have traded that one down. And this one here would have gotten you about 50 pips or so during US session, right? And granted, this is after you getting in, after it passes catch up. If you got in early, you would have gotten a lot more pips. So let's say like right here, you could have gotten 75 pips instead of 50. But I would much rather take the 50 and be assured that we're doing the right thing than not, than take the 75 and not be sure, right? So that was Sunday, Monday. Let's take a look at Tuesday here and see if we have any kind of setups on Tuesday, which was yesterday. Alright, so as far as any setups, the only one that I could see would have happened here would have been this one here, basically creating a W formation, and that would have been your trade there. So this would have happened in New York session, and that would have been from right here. That's a good 35 pips or so right there in what, 3 candles, so not too bad for just a little time frame there. All right, so that's the 2 days there. Let's go to pound Swiss. And again, this right here would have been Sunday, Monday. And here you can see that the only kind of trade setup that we would have gotten would have came here after market makers moved up. and created a railroad track. So this would have been a type 1 setup. And instead of an M formation, we got a railroad track instead. Okay, so with this, that would have been your trade right there. And that's about 46 pips down the water. Didn't make it quite to Mayo, but you still got some good amount of pips from that. And then this would have happened during New York session, and same kind of thing as with the other pound pairs. We did create an M formation here, took that to water, and that would have been another 25, 26 pips or so. Okay. So that would have been 1 and 2 trades that you could have taken on pound Swiss. Okay. And if we move it over here to Tuesday, let's see where this would have ended up at here, about right here, 2 o'clock. And so here we go again with a star pattern here, a nice looking star pattern, but it doesn't meet our trade criteria because it didn't close above catch-up, right? So I would have went all the way back down, came back up. Again, this is not a setup here. This doesn't give us a setup here, okay? So just don't worry about it. There's no type 1, type 2, type 3 setup here, so don't worry about it. What there is a setup, though, is this does allow us to get a setup into the US session here and take this one instead, right? So this would have been your setup here for the US session, and we could have taken it all the way up to Mayo, and that was about 35 pips or so. Okay. So that was pound Swiss. Let's go to pound Jappy. And same thing here. This would have been Asian session during Sunday, Monday. And we really didn't get any kind of a setup until we got up to here, which was around the 430 mark. And you can see we got a nice little M formation here. Came back down, came back up. And then boom, there's your M, and there's your trade. So this right here would have gotten you about 42 pips or so. Okay, and same thing on US session. This helped us create another M, which was right here, and taking that to Mayo as well. So that would have been around 50 pips, depending on where you would have gotten in on, but either from 40 to 50 pips. So again, you would have had 1 and then 2 trades. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over to Tuesday here, and let's move this over, and you'll kind of notice the same kind of trend, right, on all the pound pairs for the most part. That happened here on Tuesday, where we really didn't get the best setups. I mean, price obviously moved, but we just didn't get the best setups at all. It didn't give us any really good confidence setups. So, and that's okay, because even though it didn't give us any setups during London, this gives us potentially good setups for the US session. Right, so here's the setup for the US session. Is this allowed us to basically create a W here and then take that to water, and that would have been your trade setup for the US session, right? And so that would have given you about a good 37 pips or so. So that would have been the setup for pound Jappy. And on pound AUD, one of the things I want you to see is that, how we normally talk about price when it moves at the beginning of the week in one direction for for 2.5 days. Notice how this in the last 2.5 days have basically moved sideways, right? And so typically when we see this and price moves sideways, it doesn't go up or drop for 2.5 days. It means that there is something that's going to break out of this area here. Okay. So this is setting up a level, essentially, is what it's doing, for it to break out and go either higher or drop, depending on what the market makers want to do. So just keep that in mind, that whenever you do see this, and you see at the beginning of the week, the first 2 days of the week, we didn't really do any kind of, straight rise or straight drop. It literally just moved sideways within a range, right? So we just moved within a range. We didn't go up higher or lower. And you see the EMA is also kind of just going all straight across now, right? We're not going up, down. We're not going up. This is definitely going to lead to a bigger move that's going to happen, potentially, either in the next couple of hours on London session opens up, or the next day. So either like on a Thursday, possibly, it's going to break out to a bigger move. So just keep that in mind whenever you do see that. Okay. So for these two days here, we really didn't have any kind of a decent setup. The only one that I see here that would have been a decent setup would have come on US session. So we would have had a setup here again with the M, right? So we could have taken that one, right? And that would have been a good 50 pips there. And then on the next day, if we draw out the Asian session here, two would have been right here. There's your Asian session, right? And again, as you can see, there's not a lot of, you see how all the EMAs are moving sideways. So there's not a lot of any kind of obvious, really nice setups here besides this one. You could see here, we created an M formation here, and you could have taken that one down like that, and that would have been, let's see, a good 56 pips or so. So, and then also you did have, this did give us a chance to go back up on the reversal during US session. And we had some railroad tracks here, as you can see, but it didn't give us, a whole bunch of time here because of the EMAs all being squished together, right? So this is going to break out at some point. I can tell you that for sure. It's going to break out, whether up or down, we'll have to see, but it is definitely going to break out whenever you see all the EMAs going straight across like that, and they're all bunched together, right? So this really didn't give us too big of a trade during the US session. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the euro pairs and see what euro's done. All right, and so on the euro pairs, again, this is some of the things where we could, once you get really good at seeing it, you could take it both ways, and you can trade both ways. So obviously, we have a trading out of the edge box here. There's your W, and then at the very top, we did get a star pattern here as well. So you can see it here. We got a star pattern, and then we could have traded that all the way down again. One of the things that make trading pretty hard sometimes is whenever these EMAs are bunched together, you can see that they don't give you very clear moves unless you're really, really looking at them. Okay. So again, we could have taken 1 or 2 trades here. That's 36 pips. That would have been 58 pips or so. And the very next day here, here we go. We have a nice little setup here during the last half of London here, where we could have, reversed and taken it from the low of the day, and that would have given us here a good 42 pips. Okay. Now, as you saw, I mean, we've looked at what, like 6-7 charts, and there are trade setups literally on every chart, right? So here's the important thing to remember is that just because there are trade setups on every single chart doesn't mean that you're going to trade, all 10 pairs, right? You're going to look and try to find the pair that has the best setups, right? Find the pairs that you feel have the better setups, the best setups possible. That way you're that more confident when you're taking the trades, okay, about what's going on here. So if you don't see the W, or if you don't see the pattern develop, and just don't take the trade. You don't have to take the trade, guys. You don't have to be in a trade every single day, right? We're looking for things, setups that are clear to us. So if the setup isn't clear, there is no trade. Don't trade that day. Take the day off, right? So just make sure that you guys keep that in the back of your minds, that there is no rush to be in a trade, okay? You don't have to trade every day. The most important thing is to make sure that you identify the pattern and the timing, okay, and then make sure that setup meets with the rules, okay? If that setup doesn't meet with the rules, then there's no point in taking the trade or the setup. But you can see that there's trades literally on every single pair, right? Look, there's a trade right here out of the Asian range. We have a star formation here, took it back up. This one here gave us a W. You can see right here, back up. So I mean, there's literally trades on every single pair. There's literally trades on every single pair. The best trade here that would have been a good trade would have been here, this M formation here. There's your M formation, right? So just because on this here, just because you missed this, so what? So what, by the way, if you missed it? So what? You missed it, okay? It didn't have a clear pattern for you. I mean, you could have said, yeah, this is the W right here, and you could have taken it, and then boom, look, it turned into an M right back, right? Until you get confidence enough to see these patterns back and forth like this, I mean, there's no shame to missing one. That's okay. It's just setting you up for another one. Okay, as you can see, we've gone through like 7 or 8 pairs, and we found trades on every single pair. So there's an abundance of trade setups that are happening on every pair, right? It's just the point of finding the ones that you can see clearly and you know what it is. That's the most important thing, is you being able to see it. I can see it all day long, but if you don't see it, what the hell does it matter? Because if you don't see it, then you're not going to trade it. So, for example, this one here, let's set up this at 2 o'clock. Here's your setup here on this one. This gave us a nice V bottom here, and here's an evening star here. Here's a star right here pattern that we would have taken, right? and this happened around 5 o'clock. Look, 5 o'clock, 5:15, right? And you would have gotten another 57 pips. I mean, the patterns are there, the setups are there. It's just, can you identify those patterns that are there? Okay, here's Euro AUD. I mean, I'm already seeing, like, I don't even have to draw this stuff, right? And I'm already seeing the patterns. Like, here's a nice little M formation here that you could have taken. Boom. Right? I mean, these are all things that you could have taken. This would have happened, let's see, 2. Let's draw out the Asian box here on this one. Boom. So let's take a look and see. Do we have anything here? Yeah, the only thing that we could have gotten out of this one here is this, right? We have this, that, right? That would have been a trade right here. That would have been an easy 20 pips, right? So I mean, if you would have gotten here, if you would have gotten over here, that's like 30 pips, you know? So the patterns are there, you know? Like I say, the patterns are there. So I hope that going through this and just pointing out the patterns that I see on these different charts and showing you that every single chart, pretty much almost every day, has some type of pattern that you can trade. It's just up to you to do some homework and go back into the charts. Go back a month, 2 months, whatever, a year, and literally just draw your Asian range. Draw your Asian range from 8 o'clock until 2. Right? Draw your Asian range and then see if you can spot the pattern. Okay? See if you can spot the pattern. If this doesn't have a pattern for you to spot, cool, you don't trade it. Right? Go to the next one. And go to the next one, go to the next one. Right? That's it. You just have to go and do the homework. If you don't do the homework, I'm telling you, you're not going to get consistent out of it. And you really don't want to do this. Because the homework part, the going back to the charts and stuff like that, is the stuff that people don't want to do. Right? Everybody wants to trade and be successful, but they don't want to do the actual work that it takes to be successful and most importantly, be consistent. Right? So, I mean, here's a beautiful, just an unbelievable pattern, right? So, one of the things that I always tell you guys is that when you should be concerned whenever there's been, 2.5 days and we start to see some real separation within the EMAs, right? So you can see here, the 50, the 200, and the 800. Look how far separated we are from all this stuff, right? Like when we were down here, look how far separated we were from everything. So you have to realize and think, okay, all this stuff is separated, so that means all the retail traders are going to be selling, right? I need to be thinking about buying, okay? Because there's something wrong when you have 2.5 days of drop and all the EMAs are spread out. They're spread eagle out here, okay? There's so much space in between them. You have to start thinking, okay, retail traders are going to be selling. I want to be buying, okay? Because price has to come back. They have to pocket the money. They have to take profit on all these sellers that they got stuck from all the way from up here. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. Every time, if you go back and look at the charts, every time that you see price separated, look, every time that you see price separated, right, from the 50 to 200 or it's separated, it has to come back to it. Every time that it's separated, right, it has to come back to it. Every time that it's separated, it's got to come back to it. Okay? It just does. Look, all the way down here, look how much separation there is. It has to come back to it. Okay? It has to. Because they have to book profits. They're not going to let retail traders get all the money. They're trying to prevent them from taking all the money, you know? So every time that you see this, I'm telling you guys, it's going to go back. Start thinking, think like a market maker. Don't think like a retail trader no more. Okay? All right, guys. So we went through a bunch of different pairs. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video, guys. Until next time.